The podcast you're about to hear is part of the Polish-Scottish Heritage Project, as one of its many productions which aim to promote a greater awareness of Poland and Scotland's shared heritage. We hope that it encourages you personally to look into the stories of the places, events and people that shape the history we are privileged to share.
Both my parents were from Poland, and my mother's still alive. She stays next door. This is Tomasz Ziarski-Kernberg. She's 86 years old, and she's from a place called Worochta. Well, it's now in the Ukraine. It's near Stanisławów, and of course that part of Poland was taken by the Soviet Union, and so she and her family were deported in 1940 to Kazakhstan. And my father, he was from Lviv, and he was deported as well, his family, to Kazakhstan. Never met in Russia, but they met in Scotland after the war. And he volunteered for the Polish army. He was underage, but he was in good health. My father was at Monte Casino in 1944. He was wounded, and he ended up in Scotland for convalescence. My mother somehow came to Scotland with the Polish Red Cross, because she was, first of all, she and her father and her three sisters, they were in Persia or Iran. Then they went to British East Africa. She was tired of life in the camps in East Africa because it wasn't very interesting. So I don't know how I did it, she says. I said to my father, I want to join the Polish Red Cross. And she was sent to Scotland, where she met my father, you see. Very romantic story.
Yeah, very nice.
That's how they met.
And your parents stayed?
My father, from day one, he knew he wasn't going back to Poland.
He just knew.
Time to go back to Poland. And he learned English right away. Mother used to say, used to look at the patients, what they're doing, and some guys were playing cards, you know, and looking at pictures and stuff like that. My dad always had a book and was trying to learn English from this book.
And what did your parents say it was like to be Polish living in Scotland after World War II?
Just after the war, the Poles were very unpopular because there's lots of propaganda in favour of Stalin and the Soviet Union, and people couldn't understand why they couldn't go back to Poland. They say your country's independent, the Germans are gone, why don't you go back to your own country? And they had to explain, you know, the Germans are gone, but the Russians are here, and they're just as bad. We don't want to go back to Poland because what happened to us? Because people were afraid. Poles were genuinely afraid to go back there. And said, all right, we're in exile, but let's try and make our homes here, and perhaps go back to Poland at a later date when Poland is truly independent. But years passed and passed and passed, and well, it didn't happen.
Do you think that having Polish parents significantly shaped your experiences of growing up in Edinburgh?
It's an unusual situation because Polish people do not look that distinctly different from British people. So it really stand out. And also I was lucky because even though our first language was Polish in the house, I learned English quite quickly because all my friends were Scottish. And I went to school as 5 years old. My mother said that I knew a lot of English when I went to school, so I picked up really fast. But of course, because you've got a strange surname, you know, people say, well, you're not called McGregor or something, so where do you come from? And I had to explain that I was born in Edinburgh, but my parents were from Poland. And they always ask you, why? 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 I said, tell them, it was the war. They said, what war? I couldn't believe they didn't know about it. So I went home and I said to my dad, I said, Dad, how come you ended up in Scotland? And he said, well, do you want me to tell you? So he told me the story. He told me about Monte Casino and other things like that. Quite a simple version. But it's the people ask you questions, just keep telling them that your father fought for Britain, so you have every right to be here. I said, yeah, that's right. So I told them. My dad was in the British Army, but he was Polish. Father very rarely spoke about what life was like before the war. And I never really knew why. Well, he died, I was 19 years old. Really before I got a chance to know him that well, which is sad. But he was a very private man. He liked doing things. He wouldn't talk about himself. And he wrote for the Polish newspaper in London, the Dziennik Polski. And he wrote stories about shopping and about connections between Scotland and Poland. I was fascinated by it. About Wojtek the bear and stuff like that. You know, expressed himself that way rather than talking. Whereas mother couldn't help talking. She loves talking.
So would you say that you felt Polish growing up, despite being born and raised in Edinburgh?
I think people feel it in different ways. And, you know, it's sort of a difficult thing. It's like you're trying to find a balance because you're Polish in one sense, but not in another sense, you know. And it's like, it's a language thing, because even though I speak Polish, I feel that my vocabulary is as good as it should be. brak mi słów, ale próbuję, I do my best. But my sister, she's a really good linguist, and her Polish is fantastic, and she teaches Polish. I think she feels more Polish probably than I do in that sense. We all feel Polish with different degrees of Polishness.
And what about feeling Scottish?
I never felt sort of not associated, because I wanted to be both. And I think the vast majority of Scottish people like the Polish people, and they get on. I mean, I can't remember a single time anybody ever said anything bad to me being Polish, because, I think the message was that Poland is a country which were allies of Britain, who, through no fault of their own, were taken over by the Soviet Union, and basically we're all right people, and they were here trying to do a good job. Because most Poles have very good reputations, they're very hard workers, etc., very honest people. And also they integrated so easily, because both my parents were Polish, the culture was definitely Polish, even though all around the sort of influences were Scottish. And I don't feel myself to be any different from any Scottish person, because Scotland is my country as well.
And what about going back to Poland for the first time? Did you or your parents go back often?
My dad, for various reasons, wouldn't go to Poland. Mother's been back a few times, because in 1989 everything changed. And suddenly people like Mother could say, we can go to Poland again, because it's our country, so we can go there. She got a Polish passport, Polish citizen. And the first time I went to Poland with my sister was 1977. It was probably quite late, because people did go to Poland earlier. And we stayed in Krakow. And Krakow is a lot like Edinburgh, I think. It's got a beautiful castle, the Wawel Castle. And there's so many gardens and parks. It's such an attractive place and so historical, it's full of history. I loved it, really did.
Did you feel connected to the place in any way?
Yes, yeah. My sister felt at home right away, it's brilliant. We're still a very nice family, not our family, but really nice people.
And what about any unexpected differences?
My mother still does, called ruske pierogi, which is potato, cheese and onion. It's like big raviolis. Mother always used cheddar cheese, because it's very hard to get Polish cheese in those days. And the lady we're staying with, of course in Poland there was no cheddar cheese, so she used twaróg, she used twaróg for pierogi, and the taste was totally different, very salty. And of course we had to be polite and eat them. They said they're not the same. I said, no, they don't taste like Mother's pierogi. I suppose this is what they should taste like, if you make them in Poland. But because we had the Scottish version of. And
were the Polish community in Edinburgh at that time quite a tight-knit group?
I started going to a Polish school, and it was on Saturday mornings. That was, I don't know, it was a bit of a culture shock, because the way they taught it was so strange. I went to a Catholic school, of course, called St Augustine's, a room house, and there were a few people like myself, of Polish descent, and used to meet them everywhere. At church, for instance, there's a place called St Anne's Oratory, and for years that was known as the Polish Church in Edinburgh. That was like the real centre of the Polish community, because for Polish people, especially in those days, religion was very, very important. Especially in 1978, when you had the Polish Pope, Jan Paweł II, John Paul II. And for Polish, this was fantastic. Here we are, sitting in Scotland, everyone's forgotten about us. And suddenly, the Poles suddenly started feeling, Polish again, even more Polish.
And what about the next generation of your family, your sister's children, for example? Do you think they'll grow up with the same emphasis on their Polish heritage?
With time, it gets more diluted, because the sort of emotional pool isn't there. But the feeling is that they want to have something to do with Poland or Polishness, well and good, but it's not quite the same pressure. Because we had a bit of pressure on us, it was not sort of forced upon us. We still had the feeling that you want to keep your dad happy if you speak Polish in the house, for instance, or be interested in things that are Polish. I was interested. Mother even more so. Mother used to say all the time, move po polsku, she did it, speak Polish. My sister, because she teaches Polish children, she's got a lot of connection with all things Polish, she would be delighted if her daughter and her son were interested, but unfortunately they're not very much, so unfortunately just the way it is, because the connection with Poland is more and more diluted. They've been to Poland on holiday, but it's not quite the same sort of emotional pull.
And why do you think it's important to continue to think about Scotland and Poland's connections through, for example, your parents' stories and your own upbringing?
I think because since the year 2003, there were so many people from Poland who were staying in Scotland, especially in Edinburgh, that suddenly the Polish community would be discovered. And that's brilliant, because there's not many left from the first generation. Mother, for instance, is 86, and she's one of the youngest. So
Really?
I want to talk to them, let's move fast, because there's not many left.
Thomas, thank you.
This project would not have been possible without the support of our sponsors, including the Consulate General of the Republic of Poland in Edinburgh, and the enthusiasm and hard work of our project volunteers, for which we are extremely grateful.